In a small, quiet village there lived a woman named Rose. Her once bright world had dimmed since the day she received the heart-wrenching news that her husband, Captain Eli, had gone missing in action during the war. The love they shared was a bond made of laughter and dreams, but now it felt like a shadow hovering over her. As she waited for any word of him, each day grew heavier with despair. Pregnant with their first child, Rose faced a future filled with uncertainty. The village, once bustling with life and joy, felt lonely without Eli by her side. Friends and neighbors offered their condolences, but their sympathetic glances only deepened her sorrow. How could she bring a new life into this world when her heart felt so empty? Each night, she would whisper to her unborn child stories of their father, his bravery, his kindness, and the way he could make anyone smile. But amidst her grief lurked another presence. Her mother-in-law. Known for her sharp tongue and calculating nature, the older woman had always been wary of Rose. Now that Eli was presumed dead, Rose sensed the mother-in-law's growing ambitions. She was eager to claim the family estate for herself and saw Rose as nothing more than an obstacle in her way. The tension between them intensified as days turned into weeks. With each passing moment, Rose struggled to maintain hope. She spent long hours at the window, watching the horizon for any sign of Eli's return. Her hands gently cradled her belly as she imagined their child meeting its father for the first time. But as time dragged on, doubts crept in like shadows in the evening light. What if Eli never returned? What would happen to her and their baby? One chilly afternoon, while preparing to welcome another winter without Eli, Rose overheard a bitter argument between her mother-in-law and a neighbor. The woman's voice dripped with malice as she plotted how to seize control of the estate now that Eli was gone. Fear gripped Rose's heart. She realized how desperate her mother-in-law had become and how far she would go to achieve her goals. That evening, as darkness enveloped the village, everything changed. Without warning, Rose found herself trapped in the root cellar beneath the house, a cold and damp place where no light could reach her. The door slammed shut with a finality that echoed through her bones. Panic surged within her as she banged on the heavy door. "Let me out," she cried out in vain. Days turned into an endless blur of fear and loneliness as she sat in darkness. She missed sunlight on her face and fresh air filling her lungs. She could barely eat or drink. All that consumed her thoughts was getting free for the sake of her unborn child. Just when hope seemed lost, strange sounds began to fill the silence. The faint cries of a baby echoed through the floorboards above her head. It was then that something stirred inside Rose. A flicker of determination ignited within her very soul. Unbeknownst to her, far away from this dark prison, Captain Eli was fighting his own battle, a battle against despair and pain from his injuries sustained during war and against time itself as he made his way back home to find his family. Little did either know that their fates were about to intertwine once more in ways they could never have imagined. As the days slipped by in Rose's dark prison, a different kind of darkness loomed above her, the scheming presence of her mother-in-law. The older woman, once merely a distant figure at family gatherings, had now transformed into a relentless predator. Her eyes were cold and calculating, betraying the hidden ambitions that swirled beneath her seemingly polite demeanor. The village whispered tales of the mother-in-law's sharp tongue and heartless ways. Known for being demanding and controlling, she was not one to be trifled with. Since Eli's disappearance, her true colors began to show through the thin veneer of respectability. With every passing day that Eli remained unaccounted for, her eagerness to claim the family estate grew stronger. She viewed Rose as nothing more than a barrier standing in her way, an obstacle to be removed if she wanted what she believed was rightfully hers. One particularly bleak afternoon, while Rose sat quietly in the enclosed darkness of the cellar, flashes of memories from earlier times filled her mind. She recalled how Eli always stood up for her against his mother's jabs, defending their love with unwavering strength. Now that he was gone, however, the mother-in-law felt empowered. She plotted with increasing fervor to take control of everything Eli had worked for. A modest home filled with memories that now felt like chains binding Rose. The very notion made Rose shudder. She overheard hushed conversations between her mother-in-law and several other villagers who had come to visit under innocent pretenses. They spoke in low tones about how they could best manage things now that Eli was presumed dead. Each word carried an icy weight that pressed upon Rose's heart like a heavy stone. "Once they know he isn't coming back," the mother-in-law had hissed one evening, "they will realize it is time for a change around here." In those moments, it became painfully clear to Rose that she was no longer just grieving. She was targeted by someone whose greed would stop at nothing. Desperate not to fall victim to this cunning predator, Rose began to devise a plan within herself, a flicker of hope ignited by the thought of protecting her child and honoring Eli's memory. However, without freedom or means to escape from the dark cellar where she was confined, fear crept in again. Meanwhile, outside those thick walls, life went on with a deceptive normalcy. The mother-in-law set about orchestrating her scheme with meticulous precision. She instructed neighbors on how best to handle things regarding the estate. With rose-colored glasses wrapped around her desires, she envisioned hosting lavish parties in their home and entertaining influential friends who would admire her newfound wealth and status. As days turned into weeks inside the cellar, whispers from above echoed down like ominous reminders of Rose's reality. Her mother-in-law was moving forward with plans that included selling off parts of their land and preparing for new occupants who would surely come after any semblance of normality faded away. The thought sent chills racing through Rose's veins as she fought against despair once more. How could she let this happen? Her heart screamed for Eli's presence as it weighed down against this emerging threat like an anchor pulling her deeper into darkness. In this brewing storm of treachery and greed, every moment counted, each tick echoed against the stone walls as if time itself conspired against them all. Would Eli find his way back home in time to thwart his mother's malicious plans? Would love conquer this twisted ambition? As these thoughts consumed Rose, she clung fiercely to hope, the hope that somehow they would prevail over such cruelty before it was too late. The darkness of the root cellar wrapped around Rose like a suffocating blanket. It was a place devoid of light and hope where the air felt heavy with despair. Each time she looked around, the uneven stone walls seemed to close in further, amplifying her sense of isolation. She could barely see her trembling hands as she pressed them against the ground, seeking some connection to the world above that now felt so far away. With every passing moment, fear clawed at her heart. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant echoes of life outside, the laughter of children playing, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, and the familiar creaks of the old house that felt alien to her now. Those sounds were constant reminders of everything she had lost and everything she was fighting for. Rose sat on the cold, hard floor, cradling her belly protectively as she took deep breaths to calm herself. The gentle fluttering of her baby stirred within her, a small comfort amidst the chaos. "I will protect you," she whispered softly, tears welling in her eyes. She imagined holding her child and sharing stories of their father, the brave soldier who fought for more than just his country. He fought for their family, for a future filled with love and laughter. But as doubts crept in, so too did the darkness of her situation. What if she never got out of this place? What if Eli never returned? The thought sent icy shivers down her spine. How could she bring a child into a world where they might never know their father? Each fear fed into another, creating a cycle of despair that consumed her thoughts. Her mother-in-law's cruel laughter haunted her mind, echoing through the silence. Rose could picture her sitting comfortably above, planning how to take everything that belonged to Eli, seizing the estate and stripping Rose of her dignity. It made her sick to think how someone could be so heartless, especially toward family. Despite being trapped in such dark confinement, Rose felt a flicker of anger rise within her. It was small but fierce. "I won't let her win." Rose clenched her fists tightly. "I will find a way out." The determination to protect her child fueled her spirit even as fear threatened to snuff it out. She began to formulate plans in her mind, wondering if there might be a way to escape the cellar and thwart her mother-in-law's wicked schemes. But she had to be careful. One wrong move could mean further punishment or increased cruelty from the woman who seemed to relish in the power she held over Rose. Time became an ever-growing enemy as each hour stretched endlessly in isolation. Raindrops pattered against the roof above like tiny fists beating down on her hopes. Memories of Eli flooded back, how he used to kiss her forehead and promised that they would face everything together. Those memories felt like both a balm and a blade, comforting yet painful reminders of what once was and what might never be again. As darkness turned into night, Rose strained to listen for any sign of movement above her. Would someone come? Would someone hear her cries? The fear of being forgotten gnawed at her insides like a vicious beast. In those moments of deep loneliness, she focused on the faint sounds of life that seeped through from above, clinging to the notion that she was not completely alone, that somewhere out there, Eli was fighting to return home. Yet each heartbeat echoed against the cold stone walls, and with it came an overwhelming urgency. She needed to get out. It was no longer just about survival, it was about ensuring that love and family would prevail against cruelty. Clutching her baby bump tightly, Rose vowed not to give up hope. She would hold onto that flickering light until the very end, determined to find freedom again and reunite with Eli, or else risk everything for the sake of their child's future. Captain Eli staggered through the dense woods, each step a painful reminder of the battles he had fought. His uniform was tattered, his body weary and battered from the harsh realities of war. He had been declared missing, thought to be dead by those who loved him, but against all odds he had survived. Now, after what felt like a lifetime in hell, he was finally returning home. As he emerged from the thicket and caught sight of his village in the distance, emotions surged within him, relief mixed with anxiety. What awaited him? He could hardly remember the warmth of his home or the embrace of his beloved Rose. Would she still be waiting for him? The very thought made his heart race faster than it ever had on the battlefield. With every painful step toward home, Eli's thoughts turned to Rose and their unborn child. He remembered her laughter and the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke about their future together. But now that future seemed shrouded in uncertainty after everything he had endured. Had he lost them both forever? As Eli approached their home, a strange sound reached his ears, a soft, desperate cry echoing from beneath the floorboards. It pierced through his thoughts like a flare in the night sky. His heart sank as concern flooded in. Was it a baby? Confusion mixed with dread. What could possibly have happened while he had been away? He quickened his pace, ignoring the sharp pain that shot through his leg with each step. Upon reaching the front door, he found it ajar, a sign that something was amiss. Eli pushed it open carefully and stepped inside, scanning every corner for signs of life. The house felt hauntingly quiet despite that persistent cry calling out to him from below. He moved closer to the cellar door and knelt down to listen. The cries grew louder, filling him with an urgency he couldn't ignore. His mind raced as he tried to piece together what this meant. Was Rose trapped? Was their child already here without him? Without wasting another moment, Eli grasped the handle and pulled open the cellar door. The darkness yawned before him like an abyss, but he didn't hesitate. He knew he needed to act fast for Rose and their baby. Rose, he called into the depths below as he lowered himself down into the dim space filled with shadows and uncertainty. I'm coming. Hold on. The fear that twisted in his stomach fueled his determination as he fumbled around for something to break free whatever held them captive. His hands found a heavy tool nearby, a rusted iron bar that looked strong enough to smash whatever lock kept them apart. With one powerful swing, he hit the lock repeatedly until it finally gave way with a loud clunk that reverberated through the cellar like thunder. As soon as the door swung open, Eli's heart raced at what lay before him. Darkness cloaked everything except for faint hints of movement and sound coming from within, the muffled cries of a baby and an all-too-familiar figure huddled on the cold ground. Rose! He rushed forward into the gloom where she sat cradling her belly protectively. Fear etched across her face, but relief blooming like flowers in spring when she saw him. Eli? She gasped softly, tears streaming down her cheeks as she reached out toward him desperately. In that moment, all doubts of despair faded away. They were together again against all odds. As Eli pulled her into a tight embrace while gently lifting her up from her cold prison floor, both their anxieties fell away momentarily amidst pure joy at reunion. And yet deep down they both knew this was just the beginning of a fight against all that sought to tear them apart once more. Eli's heart raced as he stepped deeper into the darkness of the cellar, the cries growing louder and more desperate. A mixture of fear and determination surged through him as he scanned the dim space, trying to make sense of what lay before him. The shadows shifted in the flickering light that barely penetrated the gloom, but he wouldn't let fear hold him back. He was here to save his wife and child. Rose, he shouted again, his voice echoing off the cold stone walls. Each syllable felt like a lifeline thrown into a dark sea of uncertainty. He could feel the urgency in her cries, and it pushed him forward. Eli moved quickly, navigating around old barrels and crates that cluttered the cellar floor. His heart pounded in rhythm with every step, each thud a reminder of what was at stake. As he drew closer to the source of the cries, Eli's breath caught in his throat. What if something had happened to Rose? What if she needed help? Panic threatened to swallow him whole as images of her alone in this dark place filled his mind. But he shook off the dread. He needed to focus on finding her. Finally, he spotted movement in a corner. A figure huddled against the wall, cradling something small in her arms. Relief washed over him like a wave crashing onto shore when recognition dawned upon him. Rose! Rushing forward, Eli knelt beside her, his eyes widening at the sight before him. There she was, his beloved wife, looking worn and frightened but alive. She held their newborn baby tightly against her chest, tears glistening on her cheeks as she looked up at him with disbelief. Eli, she gasped, relief flooding her voice as she reached toward him. You're back. I thought I would never see you again. I'm here now, Eli replied, wrapping his arms around both Rose and their child protectively. The warmth radiating from them filled his spirit with strength. I will always come back for you. But even amidst their reunion, uncertainty loomed over them like a storm cloud. Eli quickly took stock of their surroundings while still holding Rose close. They were trapped in this dark space beneath their home, a place that had become a prison not only for Rose but for their dreams as a family. Are you hurt? What happened? Eli asked urgently as he pulled back slightly to look into her eyes. I'm fine, Rose assured him softly, though exhaustion lined her features. But it's my mother. She locked me down here. She wants everything, our home, our life together. Her voice trembled with emotion as she spoke about her mother-in-law's cruel intentions. Eli's jaw tightened at the mention of Rose's mother, a woman who had shown nothing but malice towards them both since they first met. Anger surged within him like fire igniting kindling. How could someone be so heartless? He knew they had to act fast before it was too late. No more hiding, he declared fiercely while grasping Rose's hand firmly in his own. We'll find a way out together. He glanced around the cellar for anything that could help them escape this nightmare. As hope rekindled within him, Eli spotted an old iron bar lying near some rubble, a tool that could serve them well if used wisely. He hurriedly reached for it and held it up triumphantly as if it were a sword meant to slay dragons. "This will work. We'll break open that door," he said with fierce determination gleaming in his eyes. With renewed strength coursing through him, Eli stepped toward where they had entered, the heavy lock still barring their escape, and gripped the iron bar tightly in both hands. He wouldn't stop until they were free from this darkness once and for all. Whatever it took, they would reclaim their lives from those who sought to tear them apart. As he swung the bar against the lock with all his might, every strike resonated with defiance against despair, a promise made not only to himself but also to Rose and their child that love would conquer all obstacles laid before them. And together they would emerge victorious from this trial by fire. Eli stood before the heavy lock of the cellar door, gripping the iron bar tightly in his hands. His heart pounded wildly as he steadied himself, knowing that each strike would bring him one step closer to freeing Rose and their newborn child. The cries had faded to whimpers, but the urgency still surged within him, propelling him to act swiftly. Taking a deep breath, Eli brought the bar back over his shoulder, channeling every ounce of strength he had left from his weary body. The memories of war flashed through his mind, the pain, the fear, but they were overshadowed now by a singular purpose: love for his family. "For Rose and our child," he whispered to himself, steadying his resolve. He swung the bar down hard against the lock with a deafening clang that echoed through the cellar like thunder. The impact reverberated in his bones, but he didn't stop. He couldn't afford to let pain deter him. He struck again and again, each blow filled with desperation and determination. With every swing, he envisioned Rose standing beside him, their baby cradled in her arms, alive and safe. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of relentless strikes, he felt the lock give way. It was a small victory that pulsed with energy, hope reignited in his chest like a flame flickering back to life. Without hesitation, Eli kicked the door open with all his might as it swung wide, revealing Rose huddled in darkness with their baby. The moment their eyes met was electric. Eli stepped into the cellar, overwhelmed by a rush of relief and love that swept over him like a warm tide. "Rose," he exclaimed as he rushed forward, dropping the iron bar to embrace her tightly. He could hardly believe that she was there. His beloved wife was alive and within reach after all the torment of uncertainty. "Oh, Eli!" Rose gasped as tears streamed down her face, her relief mingling with disbelief. She held their infant closer, as if shielding them both from any further harm. I thought I would never see you again." "I'm here," Eli said softly, cradling her face in his hands as he wiped away her tears with trembling fingers. "I will always come back for you." Just holding her felt like a balm for all his wounds, physical and emotional, as warmth radiated between them. In that moment of reunion, they shared a profound understanding of what they had both endured, while separated by fear and darkness. Eli's heart swelled with gratitude. They had overcome immense odds to find each other again. He looked down at their baby, a tiny bundle wrapped snugly against Rose, and felt an overwhelming surge of responsibility wash over him. "Is it a boy or a girl?" Eli asked gently, unable to take his eyes off the delicate features of their child. "It's a girl," Rose replied proudly as she tilted the blanket aside just enough for him to see. "Her name is Lily." Eli's heart soared at that name. It felt perfect, a symbol of new beginnings after so much sadness. He kissed Rose softly before turning his attention back to their daughter, entranced by how fragile yet beautiful she looked in her mother's arms. But as joy enveloped them like a comforting blanket, reality soon returned with an unsettling reminder: this wasn't over yet. They were still trapped in this dark cellar, still facing the threat posed by Rose's mother. "We need to get out of here," Eli said firmly as he took Rose's hand in his and glanced around for any tools or means of escape. "We can't stay hidden anymore. We have to confront your mother together." "Yes," Rose agreed resolutely, her strength shining through even in their darkest hour. Together, they stood united against whatever awaited them outside, ready to reclaim their lives and protect their newfound joy from those who sought to tear them apart once more. Eli and Rose emerged from the darkness of the cellar, their hearts racing with relief but also heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. They stepped into the dim light of their home, where remnants of a once warm and loving environment now felt tainted by betrayal. The air was thick with tension as they moved toward the main room, knowing that they had to confront the woman who had caused so much pain. As they entered the living space, Eli's eyes quickly found his mother-in-law seated by the hearth. She looked startled at first, her eyes widening in disbelief when she saw her son standing there alive. But that shock quickly morphed into anger as she regained her composure. "Eli, you're supposed to be dead," she shouted, her voice sharp as glass. "Not only am I alive," Eli said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him, "but I've come to reclaim my family." It felt empowering to take control of his own fate, the lives he held dear dangling precariously under her greed. Rose stood beside him, trembling but resolute. "You locked me away, Mom," she said fiercely. You tried to take everything from us. The mother-in-law eyed them with disdain, unfazed by her daughter's accusation. Everything I did was for our family, she retorted, venom lacing each word. That estate is meant to stay within our bloodline. You two, living in that fantasy, were just wasting it all away. Eli advanced a step closer, his heart pounding not just from fear but from a burgeoning sense of righteousness. What you call our bloodline means nothing if it's built on lies and manipulation, he said firmly. You treated your own daughter like an enemy instead of protecting her and your grandchild. For a fleeting moment, surprise flickered across her face before it hardened again like granite. Eli could see the walls closing in around his mother-in-law as he spoke, every accusation, every truth broken against her carefully crafted image. Do you really think I would allow you to disrupt my plans? She spat back defiantly, yet there was a tinge of uncertainty creeping into her voice. Yes, he replied without hesitation. I will not allow you to control our lives any longer. Each word felt liberating as he embraced the power he had rightfully earned through war and loss. A newfound strength ignited by love for Rose and Lily. His mother-in-law rose from her chair slowly, preparing for a fight he sensed she wasn't ready for. Eli felt Rose squeeze his hand tighter beside him. Together they had faced uncertainties far more daunting than this confrontation. I will tell everyone how unfit you are as parents, she shouted in desperation. Go ahead, Eli countered with confidence that surprised even himself. You can't hurt us any more than you already have. The words hung in the air like an unyielding promise. They had prepared for this moment throughout their hellish separation. Suddenly realizing she was losing ground in this battle for power, a battle which she believed was rightfully hers, her expression darkened further with rage. The arrogance that had once swept through her now faltered under Eli's unwavering gaze. This ends now. He took a deep breath before continuing forcefully but softly enough to resonate with Rose beside him. We are taking back what is ours, our home and our future. With those words spoken aloud, a declaration etched into existence, the atmosphere shifted palpably between them all as silence reigned momentarily over their heated exchange. In seeing Eli's renewed strength and conviction reflecting back around Rose and Lily's fragile hope, resting in each heartbeat, they shared together now. Everything changed within that small space cluttered by broken promises. Fists clenched tightly at her sides against turmoil swirling within her spirit as defeat stripped away all pretenses behind cruelty's veil. Realization dawned upon Rose's mother-in-law that while love may weaken some bonds forged against adversity, it would only strengthen others who stood united through turmoil. As they stood there confronting one another, their fates intertwined like vines wrapped around the very roots of loyalty tangled amidst betrayal, they were no longer vulnerable prey trapped under someone else's designs. Instead, they had become fierce guardians prepared to reclaim both their lives and legacy, standing resolute against whatever storms might lie ahead, together hand in hand moving forward toward dawn, breaking anew beyond darkness lying still behind them. With Eli and Rose finally free, a new chapter began for their family. The shadows of the cellar still felt fresh in their minds, but now that darkness was replaced with the light of possibility. They took their first steps together into a world where love and hope could flourish, determined to reclaim their lives and build a future for themselves and their daughter, Lily. Days turned into weeks as they settled back into the routines of daily life. Eli worked tirelessly to repair the damage done to their home, while Rose focused on nurturing their daughter and creating a warm environment for her to grow up in. Each nail driven into the wall and each meal prepared felt like a small victory, a testament to their resilience and unwavering commitment to one another. However, they were not oblivious to the presence of Eli's mother lingering in the background. Though she had been physically pushed out of their lives, her influence still hung over them like a dark cloud. Every time they heard a rustle outside or caught a glimpse of someone watching from afar, they were reminded that she was still searching for ways to disrupt their newfound peace. Do you think she'll try something again? Rose asked one quiet evening as they sat together on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The fading light cast long shadows across the land, mirroring the remnants of fear still haunting them. Eli turned his gaze toward her, feeling a mix of anger and protectiveness surge within him. She might, he admitted, but we are stronger now. She will see that we are united. His tone was firm. He had learned through hardship that love could conquer fear. As they navigated their new normal, Eli and Rose began to forge deeper connections with each other. Late-night talks became frequent, where they would share dreams, little visions of what their future might hold for Lily as she grew up surrounded by love instead of betrayal. They pictured her running through fields during sunny days, laughter ringing out like music in the air while Eli swung her high up into the sky. In contrast, Eli's mother was left grappling with her own reality. Cut off from her son and granddaughter, her attempts to regain power only served to weaken her hold on them further. Neighbors began whispering about her cruel schemes and harsh treatment of Rose, which only added fuel to Eli's resolve. He understood that he had a duty not just to protect his family but also to cultivate an environment where love replaced control. One evening, as Rose hummed softly to lull Lily to sleep, Eli took a moment to reflect on how far they had come together since that harrowing day in the cellar. He realized how liberating it felt to finally take charge of his own family's story instead of being swept away by someone else's ambition. "Whatever happens next," he murmured quietly as he watched Rose's gentle smile light up the dim room, "we face it together." In that newly forged bond lay an unbreakable strength, one born from pain yet blossoming into something beautiful. They knew challenges would continue to arise. Life often threw obstacles at those who dared to hope. It was simply part of their journey. However, with every shared laugh over Lily's playful coos or each tender moment spent nursing dreams late into the night, they fortified not only their relationship, but also their little family against any future storms brewing beyond those familiar walls. Emboldened by this fresh perspective on life as partners united by shared purpose, rather than division by fear, Eli and Rose stepped forward together. They were no longer victims but warriors ready to protect what mattered most. Love, family, and freedom from cruelty's grasp amidst uncertainty painted across an ever-unfolding canvas ahead filled with possibilities yet unimagined. As time moved on, the scars from their past hardened into lessons that shaped the future for Eli, Rose, and little Lily. The trials they had faced together forged undying bonds of love and loyalty that transformed their family into something unbreakable. Together, they had not only survived but had found a deeper understanding of one another, realizing that strength grows in the face of adversity. Eli often found himself watching Rose with admiration as she cradled Lily in her arms. The trials she endured during her captivity had made her resilient beyond measure, and the gentle way she nurtured their daughter reflected the love that blossomed in the darkness of their past. It struck Eli how this experience had revealed a depth to both of them, one that might never have surfaced without the trials they faced. One evening, as twilight painted the sky with hues of orange and pink, Eli entered their modest home after another long day of work. Rose was sitting in a corner by the fire, singing softly to Lily while rocking her gently. The sight warmed his heart and reminded him of everything they had fought for, setting aside all discomfort he buried deep within. "Look who's here," he said playfully, kneeling beside his wife as he reached out for Lily. Her laughter filled the room like sweet music as he held her close. "What have you been up to today?" "Oh, just enjoying the quiet," Rose replied with a smile, her eyes sparkling like stars in the night sky. There was a newfound serenity settling over them, a sense that life didn't have to be perfect to be meaningful. In those simple moments spent together, dancing lightly between joy and sorrow, they learned how truly precious family is. Each soft coo from Lily brought back memories of Rose's strength during captivity. It served as a reminder of what they overcame together. Eli couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. Their past struggles were now entwined with hope for tomorrow, the uncertainty filled with promise instead of dread. "You know," Eli began softly as he stroked Lily's hair gently while admiring both girls side by side, "I think we're building something special here." Rose nodded knowingly, her heart swelling at his words. "We create our own happiness now," she replied confidently. She appreciated how Eli's presence added layers of safety to their little world. It was something neither had taken for granted again since escaping the clutches of despair. But even within this newfound peace remained fleeting shadows, memories chasing moments without ceasing but no longer suffocating them. They may never completely shake off what Eli's mom had done, however, they were determined not to let it define them either. Every hurdle they overcame solidified their bond further, still a potent reminder that loyalty doesn't merely survive but flourishes when its roots grow tangled amidst treachery, with resilience woven deeply among its fibers. As seasons changed outside their door, so did Lily's laughter transform into gurgles punctuated by scrunched noses and wide smiles, a soundtrack signifying life returning full circle within every heartbeat shared amongst them all now. "We will protect this love we've built," Eli promised quietly one starry night after putting Lily down in her crib after a long day playing pretend games around their yard. There was magic imbued within familial bonds crafted expertly under sunsets gone by. With each sunset illuminated above while moonlight poured shimmering beauty around, gone were remnants fueling despair left behind. The focus remained unwavering upon paving brighter paths forward, wrapped tightly within one another. "We'll always have each other," Rose echoed back softly, infusing warmth into those simple words spoken just before drifting off to sleep once more alongside hope, carving everlasting dreams before flickering candles turned low. An indomitable spirit shining brightly against whatever storms yet remained ahead awaited them down life's unpredictable roads, yet unseen beyond horizon change, forever ahead, trying always endlessly onward toward brighter tomorrows, gathered together enriching families. Forever formed through love, standing boldly destined beyond bodies created, cherished through shared struggles, unmatched now united eternally, forging fresh futures beyond scars unnoticed, burning brighter than ever seen, facing new dawns, breaking free everlasting. As the seasons changed around them, Eli, Rose, and Lily thrived in their little oasis of love and resilience. Their home was becoming a place of laughter and warmth, a sanctuary built on the foundations of loyalty and commitment they had forged through shared trials. The shadows of the past no longer loomed as large, instead, they served as reminders of how far they had come together. Eli often found himself reflecting on their journey, understanding that every hardship they faced had brought them closer. It was as if the bonds tying them together were forged stronger in the fires of adversity. He realized that love wasn't just an emotion, it was a force, a choice made daily to stand by each other no matter what challenges lay ahead. In those quiet moments watching Rose interact with their daughter, he felt grateful for the strength that had emerged from their struggles. One sunny afternoon, while Rose tended to the garden, Eli joined her with Lily nestled comfortably in his arms. The vibrant colors of blooming flowers surrounded them like a celebration of new beginnings. "Look at our little patch of paradise," Eli said, smiling down at his family. Rose looked up from her task and smiled back brightly, her eyes shining with joy. "It's beautiful," she agreed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Just like our little girl." She reached out to touch Lily's tiny hand gently. Their life now revolved not only around survival but also around nurturing hope and dreams for tomorrow. A stark contrast to the fear that once consumed them. They made plans for Lily's future, dreaming about her first steps, her laughter filling their home, and all the milestones they would cherish together as a family. Yet even amidst this peace, there remained an unspoken understanding between them. Eli's mother still lingered in the background like a storm cloud threatening to break at any moment. Though she had been pushed out of their lives physically, the memories of her betrayal hung heavy in their hearts like a warning bell. "We can't let her define who we are," Eli reminded Rose one evening as they sat together on the porch after putting Lily to bed. The night air was filled with crickets chirping under a blanket of stars. He leaned back against the railing thoughtfully before continuing, "We fought too hard for our happiness." "Exactly," Rose replied firmly, determination glinting in her eyes. "We're building a life filled with love, she can't take that away from us." They knew that whatever challenges might arise in the future, their commitment to each other would serve as an unbreakable shield. In this way, every shared laugh and tender moment spent nurturing Lily formed a tapestry woven tightly with threads of resilience. They no longer saw themselves as victims of circumstance but rather as warriors united against any threats attempting to disrupt their newfound peace. As time passed and seasons continued to change outside their doorsteps, Eli and Rose remained steadfast in protecting what mattered most, each other and their precious daughter. The trials they had endured became less haunting, instead they transformed into lessons learned, each bruise and scar serving as evidence not just of survival but triumph over cruelty. With each passing day filled with joy, their days painted bright with promise, they embraced the future without hesitation or fear. They understood love's power could conquer anything if only nurtured properly amidst uncertainty waiting just beyond horizons unseen. Together hand in hand as guardians over what they built from hardships endured, Eli felt certain love would indeed triumph over cruelty every single time, even when storms raged outside or darkness crept nearby. Because within those walls soaked deeply through laughter forever blossoming anew came beginnings endlessly waiting ahead infused richly alive with hope shimmering brilliantly forth daring brightly ahead destined forevermore ignited boundless possibilities yet unfurling, endlessly amongst ever-blooming fields stretching across futures brightened eternally flourishing onward.